Part 1. Dreaming is enough to break your sense of reality. At least, snapping out of dreams is. You fall into dreams gradually without even noticing it. Who can even remember the beginning of their dreams? But when it's over, you snap out of it. From the reality of your own creation to a different reality, which is at once new and something you've experienced thousands of times before. Sometimes it's even disorienting. You don't have enough time to process that what you just lived through wasn't real. You wonder where those zombies that were chasing you just a moment ago ended up. Where did you land after you began your free float from the International Space Station, watching the stars through your helmet, waiting to die? Where is that beautiful woman that was there just a second ago? Hello, comrades. When I was a child, I used to play video games in my dreams, and I would wake up and go to play the game I dreamed about. A few times, looking through my games, I was sad to realize that the game I had dreamt about only existed in my dreams. It had felt so real just a few minutes ago. How could it not be real, though? Because of dreams, we can never be certain of our reality. Most of the time, after the fact, dreams they seem so fake, so undetailed and flawed once they are over. But they are so real in the moment. In the dream, you are incapable of imagining a higher reality, the waking reality. So, are we not dreaming now? Could we not wake up from this moment into another world that is so much more brilliant and solid and vivid, and in which we are incapable of imagining now? Every night we coax ourselves into a new reality that we begin to believe, and every morning we disavow ourselves of our nocturnal faith, which, in our dream state, is stronger than any religion. The problem, one of the core problems of philosophy that is that our waking reality is another kind of dream. We do not possess direct access to the experience of the world outside of ourselves. We only have access to the experience our brain creates of the world, and we can only hope that it is somehow representative of an external reality. If I see a red apple, the apple itself is not red, but light reflects off of the apple and into my eyes, causing a nerve signal which my brain interprets as red. Really, the apple is the opposite of red. It absorbs all the other colors, and I am seeing the one thing it doesn't absorb, the one thing that it is not. But all that is needed for my experience is the signal in the brain. I take on faith that there is really an apple off of which light reflected into my eyes. Now, we can see people hallucinate, and we know that it is possible for a human brain, even in waking hours, to show us that which isn't really there. But we also know from our own personal experience of dreams that we ourselves experience that which isn't there. The wise philosopher Zhongzi asked, "What if you were just a butterfly, dreaming that you are a person?" And this question has no answer. We must forever wait to be ripped from our reality and into a new one by forces beyond our comprehension. And if someday we are ripped into a new reality, we must also wait to see if we shall be ripped from that reality again. The central question of Ursula K. Guin's 1971 five-star classic, The Lathe of Heaven, is if our dreams have a certain reality, what if our dreams had a direct effect on our external reality? Part 2. Moral Jellyfish. What if your dreams have a real effect? That's the problem that plagues George. He dreams that his aunt is dead, and when he wakes up in a new reality, well, his aunt is dead. She had already died, and he carries the memory of both realities. Now, is he responsible for his aunt's death? That's what he thinks. And dreams are a weird thing. They come from us, but they are outside of our control. So George tries to take matters into his own hands. He disrupts the natural way of things, and he takes drugs that prevent dreams. He can no longer subconsciously change the world around him through his dreams. But his illicit drug use gets him sent to a psychiatrist who doesn't see George's condition as a curse, but rather an opportunity. He can bend reality to his will just through a dream. He hypnotizes George to have certain dreams, to change reality. But the limits of George's imagination prove to be the perfect monkey's paw. The psychiatrist can make George dream anything, but he cannot control the surrounding details. The psychiatrist tells George to dream of a world without overpopulation, and George dreams that 10 years ago there was a plague that wiped out billions of people. The psychiatrist tells George to dream of a unified Earth with no more war between men, and there is an alien invasion forcing a unified Earth in response to said invasion. The psychiatrist tells to dream of a world without racism, and all the people are gray-skinned. They wear the same clothing, listen to the same music, and all the food is bland. George objects to this, not just because of the unforeseen consequences of his subconscious mind, but because it seems wrong to him to change things at all. All things should just continue as they were, without any interference from him. He thinks it's a violation of the inhabitants of the world to constantly change reality. It's similar to the common idea in time travel stories that it's wrong to change the past. Any change in such stories, no matter how small, almost invariably ends in a worse present, always teaching the lesson that we must accept the past as it was. But is this okay? Need we accept the present as it is? If you see someone in the past dying, would you let them die just because it would change the present? The psychiatrist asked George if there was a woman dying alone and he had the power to save her, would he? Now, George doesn't know. And some of you might have been very quick to say that you wouldn't save the person in the past. And some of you might be very quick to say that you would save the one in the present. But it's the same question. It's a different version of the trolley problem. There's a woman tied down on the tracks, and you can flip the switch and save the woman, but you have no idea what will happen next. You do not know what the consequences of your actions will be, what they will truly be. So George says that he doesn't know if he would save the woman, if it's right to save the woman, to interfere with the universe. The psychiatrist calls him a moral jellyfish. This book begins by talking about jellyfish. Quote, current born, wave-flung, tugged by the whole might of the ocean, the jellyfish drifts in a tidal abyss. The light shines through it, and the dark enters it, borne, flung, tugged from everywhere to anywhere. For in the deep sea there is no compass, but nearer and further, higher and lower, the jellyfish hangs and sways, pulses, moves slight and quick within it, as the vast diurnal pulses beat in the moon-driven sea, hanging, swaying, pulsing, the most vulnerable and insubstantial creature. It has for its defense the violence and power of the whole ocean to which it has entrusted its being. It's the stubborn continents, the shelves of gravel and the cliffs of rock break from water baldy. The shelves of gravel and cliffs of rock break from water boldly into air, that dry, terrible outer space of radiance and instability, where there is no support for life. And now the currents mislead and the waves betray, breaking the endless cycle to leap in loud foam against rock and air breaking. What will the creature made all of sea drift do on the dry sand of daylight? Were we not jellyfish, floating adrift in the power and sway of the uncaring universe that sees us as nothing more than straw dogs? I don't think we are. And I don't think we can be. Part 3. Thou could thou, fate chung thou? Every chapter begins with an epigraph, little hints at this book's meaning and influences. There's a quote from H.G. Wells, another foundational science fiction author and socialist. There's a quote from Leif Kyle Hearn, another Westerner interested in the East. There are 2 quotes from the great Victor Hugo. All the other quotes, the majority of the quotes, are from Taoist authors, like little suggestions about how to interpret this book. George cannot be simply a jellyfish, but he cannot enforce his entire will on the universe through his dreams either. He must find the way to go without interrupting everything. The aliens, the ones who jumped up into existence, understand and they can help. But to understand how they help, I think we need to talk about the Tao Te Ching. It begins with 2 lines. Dao ke dao, fei cheng dao, ming ke ming, fei cheng ming. And to anyone who speaks Chinese, I'm sorry about my pronunciation. I took a classical Chinese course in college, but we never focused much on speaking it. But I think it is important to acknowledge the original text because there are so many ways to translate it. And any translation feels like kind of an insult to the spirit of the text. But we'll do our best to interpret it. We'll start with the second line because I think it's more intuitive and can be understood first. Ming ke ming, fei cheng ming. Ming means name. So this verse is like, the name that can be named is not the eternal name. Ming ke ming, the name that can be named, is like literally name can name. We can interpret the second name as like the passive to be named. Fei cheng ming is like not eternal name. Now reimagine for a moment that the concept of the cat, and we imagine it as some kind of thing that exists. The concept of cat exists like a platonic form. Then this existence is not tied to the name cat. Indeed, there are many languages with the concept of cat, but only one with the word cat. So the concept has to exist outside of the word, outside of the name. This sentence suggests to me that there is some kind of eternal name for cats, for perhaps all things, but this is not a name that could be spoken, that could be understood by people, or perhaps at least not articulated. But there is something beyond our limited and ephemeral utterances of things. So with that in mind, let's look at the first line. Dao ke dao, fei cheng dao. It's similar in structure to the first, but it refers to the Tao. This is the way, the path, moral righteousness, logos. The way to make good art, just what you should do. But I like to think of it as the path, mostly. And I would interpret this as the path that can be paved is not the eternal path. And I take this to mean that you can go many different ways. You can do many different things. It may even be the correct way in that moment, but it's not the eternally correct way. It is the way you find in that moment, in a state of flow when you are in harmony. George must be in harmony. He must act with things as they are to adjust him, but he cannot try to completely alter them. He cannot destroy the harmony. And this is the moral good, not just for George, but for everyone. I think that's one of the lessons I took away from this book. It's a great book. 5 stars out of 5 stars. Highly recommend you read it. I tried not to spoil it too much. Hopefully, did give you, a good reason to read it if you haven't done so. And if you have read it, leave me your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to hear me talk about the English language, the Tao Te Ching, reading, and particularly the next book about dreams I'm reading by a left-leaning woman from the very same year, 1971, The King of Attar are waiting for you, then subscribe to my channel. But first, some cool words I had to look up while reading this book. Barbiturate. It's any derivative of barbituric acid that acts as depressants of the central nervous system and are used as sedatives or hypnotics. Did not know that. Kwashiorkor, a form of malnutrition found in children caused by dietary insufficiency of protein in combination with a high carbohydrate diet. Or neurologist, a dream interpreter. I like this one. Lathe, it's right there in the title. It means to ask for. It can also be a kind of machine. There were a few different meanings. Stanchion, it's a vertical pole. Effluvium, it's a regular plural, so you might see this more often as effluvia. It's a gaseous or vapor emission. A braid, which means to rub off. Humdinger, it's a word I heard before, but I still felt like I had to look this one up. It's something that is fantastic. Skein, it's a quantity of yarn. Fakir is someone who takes advantage of the gullible through fakery, especially in a spiritual or religious nature or context. And I really liked this one, funicular. It's a car suspended on a rope, particularly to get to the top of a mountain. This is something I'd seen a million times before. I didn't know it's called a funicular. If you'd like to talk about the oldest book ever written, then there's a video about the Epic of Gilgamesh right over here. But don't forget to drop me a like before you go. Now, good night, good day, and good potato.